Yes, I'm still here, Hollywood. Just ahead on today's episode.
Pam was so pretty without makeup. He was very nervous about being an actor.
How about Jonathan Taylor Thomas?
Jonathan just knew how to tell a joke.
Chewbacca, Robin, Tattoo, Ed McMahon. Sidekicks in film and television are some of the most important roles to fill on a cast, and all are pivotal to the success of the show. In the 1990s, there was an unforgettable sidekick who hammered his way to fame on one of the most popular comedies of the decade. This is Still Here Hollywood. I'm Steve Kmetko. Join me with today's guest from Home Improvement, Richard Karn. Would you tell me the story about the shoes?
Yeah, how many guys have stories about shoes?
Well, depending on the shoes, those are pretty...
Well, they're hush puppies.
They're worth talking about.
They're hush puppies, and these are my Christmas shoes. I only wear them usually around Christmas.
December.
December. But these were Home Improvement shoes. These shoes are over 30 years old, I would think.
And you still fit in them?
And I still fit in my shoes, and the glue hasn't come apart or anything like that. But they were I think Al, because plaid was kind of his armor. He had plaid everything. I had a plaid dinner jacket, a plaid cummerbunds, shoes, just everything.
Are the shoes the only thing that lasted?
No. I still have a couple of the shirts. I still have that. I still have that kind of dinner jacket, with the shawl collar and everything. And I'll pull that out every once in a while if I need that. But I remember going in for costume at the very beginning, and they had these Ralph Lauren fitted shirts, and they thought that they would go plaid because why not? And I put it on, and it was fitted. And I go, these aren't that comfortable. And look at the price tag on this thing. It's like back in 1991, it was like $140 for a Ralph Lauren plaid shirt. And I go to Eddie Bauer or go to The Gap. They've got really comfortable plaid shirts, and they're $25. I'll save you some money.
Ted Knight, his character Ted Baxter on the old Mary Tyler Moore Show used to say plaid was his favorite color.
Well, they got a lot of mileage out of that. I mean, we did a green screen thing where Tim painted plaid. He painted something plaid, and when you put it on, it came out a plaid color.
Do you miss the show?
I miss the camaraderie of that, and the show was, you miss it. Yeah, yes, I do. I do miss it, but it's like something that you realize it can't last forever. You can't be in high school forever, and we got 8 years out of that, and that was a good 8 years. And it was the only I had just moved to California from New York. So all of my previous work from before Home Improvement was usually theater. And you'd get, 6 weeks, a couple of months, and then you'd move on to the next show, and that seemed like the norm. And you're in a show, and you're looking for the next job. You're always looking for work. And when I got Home Improvement, I was like, well, I should figure out what's the next, what, and I go, well, I'm coming back next year. Do I take some time? Well, and then time, something will come up, a little movie or something, and you keep working. But there was kind of a relaxed feel about, okay, I'm not as desperate to find the next thing right now.
Which so many people in the business are.
But, in a sense, you want to capitalize on it. But my son Cooper was also born the first season. So all of a sudden, I didn't want to do theater where I was gone every night. So I would kind of like shy away from that. And I didn't want to go off and be, leave my wife Tootie holding
yes,
holding our baby.
Yes. How often do you see Tim or talk to him?
It comes in bunches, and then there might be a couple of months where I don't talk to him, but we've stayed in touch.
You're friends.
We're friends, and we did a show last year or 2 years ago.
More power.
Well, it started out as Assembly Required for the History Channel, and it was a competition. And then they decided they didn't like the competition. I thought the competition was hysterical. But on the darker side of a competition building show is you're asking these guys to do something quickly and they can get hurt. You can get hurt. You're dealing with sharp objects and you're hurrying. That maybe isn't like the smartest thing, but they changed it to then more power, where it was just Tim and I talking.
What did you take? What skill did you take? Was there a skill to be taken from Home Improvement?
Oh my gosh!
With tools,
there were so many. There were life skills. There were relationship skills. There were acting, and it was just like this starter class in amazing things. One of the bigger things was learning how to talk to writers, which wasn't something in my my milieu. When I did a play, I didn't necessarily work with the writer of the play. Shakespeare's gone, Neil Simon. I wasn't at that caliber or whatever. So you wouldn't mess around with those lines. It's written. This is, we're not going to change this. And then all of a sudden, Home Improvement, we're changing lines on a daily basis. And that joke didn't work. And I would defend their work. I go, no, this is a good joke. I just didn't do it right. Give me one more day. Just give me a day. They go, okay, but I don't think it works here. And sometimes it did. And they go, okay, well, yeah, you did that. You did that little different thing. It works. Yeah, okay, we'll keep that. And sometimes it's like, no, we'll move on to something else. But talking to writers, from an actor's point of view, is a skill. And then just acting in front of a camera instead of on stage. You don't have to be that big. You don't have to, get to the last seat. Although the transition was nicely facilitated because we had the show was a show within the show, so we had a live audience that we would play to, as well as the home. So there wasn't necessarily always a fourth wall, but that helped.
Tim mentioned on a podcast, I think, the other day, that they might retool Home Improvement.
Yeah, I know. That urban legend's been going on for forever. And I would love it and be afraid of it at the same time, because can you recreate that, or is it just going to be weird? You're going to have some really, really amazing writing, very, very interesting writing, to bring these people back and make them, the audience trusts us. But if we come back with stories that aren't, that captivating, compelling, we could lose it very quickly. But I would love that. The backstory for that is that the Wind Dancer, the producers, was Matt Williams, David McFadzean, and Carmen Finestra. And they had a production company called Wind Dancer. And you'll see it at the end of the show. And they were brought on by Disney's TV arm, which was Buena Vista Television, to get together and create a show and sell it to ABC. And that's what they did. And then about 2 years into the run, Disney bought ABC. And now there's like this little conflict of interest. We think maybe we'd like to buy the show for less. And Wind Dancer's going, no, we can sell it for more. It's a hit. We can go to CBS. We can go to NBC. And so there's been a little thing there for 25 years.
How did you first get the job?
Many things in our world, in our life, we can walk back. You can go, oh, you know what? This happened because of this, or because I met this person, or because I did and I walked this back all the way to Michigan, to Holland, Michigan, where I did summer theater with a director. We did a play called Strider, and we kind of butted heads because what I didn't realize at the time is he had just directed it for his college in Evansville. So I think he was trying to recreate that, and being a young actor is like, I don't get why you want me to do that. It's like, and he wouldn't say, well, that's what the other actor did. I found this out later. I go, I'm thinking this. We would kind of butt heads, and then the show opened, and it was great. all of our ideas worked, and we became friends. And then a few years later, he calls me up and goes, "There's a playwrights conference in New Harmony, Indiana, and they need actors to read plays in progress. Would you be interested?" And I go, "Well," and I'm living in New York City. Granted, my apartment is very cheap. I have had a blessed life. So the overhead in New York was not that great. But to go to New Harmony, Indiana for 2 weeks for $100 a week, stipend. We'll take care of food and drink, and at that point, my career was based on yes, I'll do that. So I did it. And I met Matt Williams, David McFadden. They were part of the New Harmony project. I didn't know who they were, really, except that they had just come off the first season of Roseanne, which I knew the show Roseanne. I didn't watch a lot of television, but I knew that show was like a big hit, but they had gotten fired. And we became great friends working on this, and I convinced them to do a skit of all the different people in this thing. It'll be very funny at the end. We can just do the skit lampooning, this director, this actor, whatever, just have fun. And we're like up till 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning writing this. Never in my life, if I had known what they had gone through or what they go through when they're writing a show, they're up till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. This is supposed to be vacation for them. And I'm like, let's write a skit, but we did that and we had a great time and we became friends. So when I then moved to California, a couple of years later, I called them up. I said, these are contacts now, even though they're friends.
Networking.
I've networked and I can call them up. And they were doing a show with Carol Burnett called Carol and Company, and they said, well, if something comes up, we have a Carol and Company. There's a company of other actors that do everything else, but every once in a while there's like a little thing, and they called me up, and I did a little thing where I was a grip, on a TV news show or whatever, and I got to stand up at curtain call with Carol Burnett. I hold her hand. It's Carol Burnett, and then I'm doing Shakespeare's Scottish play. And I've only been in town about a year, just under a year and a half. And a friend of mine from school had put together a theater program, or a theater in a church, the First Baptist Church of Beverly Hills. Probably the only Baptist church
in Beverly Hills.
But we did Shakespeare's Scottish play, and the bad luck that I had associated with that was getting a traffic ticket. I went to traffic school, and I sat next to a woman who was an agent who told me that these guys are auditioning for a TV show. And that's how I found out. So I called them. I said, and they go, "No, there's nothing for you." Which, we know that in this business there really is nothing is ever for you until you're Tom Cruise or Robert Redford or whatever. Then everything's for you. But nothing was for me. There was a neighbor, and there was a Glenn, Tim's assistant Glenn, which we had already cast with Stephen Topolowski. Who was in Groundhog Day,
right?
The life insurance, but come in and audition, and I went in and I auditioned. I made them laugh. I knew the director, John Pasquin, because I'd been a reader for him in New York. One of the weird things I did when he was casting Basketball Diaries at Arena Stage, and the only person I didn't know was Debbie Brilski, the casting director, and so I went in and I made him laugh. And we had a scene where I'm working with a lathe, and I thought, okay, I'm going to make the lathe sound. Why not? Who cares? So I'm doing the scene. He says, well, now when you're working with a lathe, what you want, and then they were laughing. And at the end, John Pasquin goes, "Hey, can you make that lathe sound like a question?" And I go, yeah, I can. I'm an actor. So, when you're working, and they were, I went, well, I scored there. I didn't know about Tim's grunt at the time, but they were just having fun with me because I'm amenable to that. And I walked away thinking, what a great audition that was. Maybe something, like I did with Carol Burnett will come up. And then Carmen Finestra, one of the guys calls me and goes, "So Rick, do you still have that beard?" And I'd grown the beard for the Shakespeare show. It's like usually I didn't have a beard because at my age that didn't seem commercial, or whatever I was thinking. And I go, "Yeah, I do." He says, "Well, Steven got a movie." And I go, "Yeah." "And he can't do the pilot." "Oh, would you mind doing just the pilot?" And I go, why would I? Yes, of course I would love to do that.
Because your career was built on yes.
And it was a pilot.
Right.
I hadn't done anything, any television of worth or anything. So yes, I will do this pilot, no problem. And I go to work, and we've got like a 10-day rehearsal thing, and the mother is Frances Fisher, originally. That's why the boys are blonde. She was kind of strawberry blonde. And we do like 3 days of rehearsal, and then that little audience comes in, and then she's gone. And I freaked out. I was like, what? And I go to Dave, and I go, or Carmen, "What happened?" He says, "It wasn't right." I go, what do you mean it wasn't? We were getting laughs. The show was great. It was, and Frances is really good. It wasn't right. I go, well, I don't, okay, I don't. And they brought in Pat Richardson. And Pat, they had talked to Pat before, but she was going to do another show called, boy, this is a lot of information, isn't it? She was going to do another show called Home Movies, which was the continuation of the Wonder Years, at 35. So she and Daniel Stern, who did the voiceover for Wonder Years, were going to do that. And then he decided he didn't want to do television, and all of a sudden she became available again, and she came in, and after like a day, 2 days, we had another little audience, and it was different. What Carmen had said was that there was a point in the in the pilot where Tim wants to charge up or make the dishwasher more powerful, right? And so she has to go out, and she turns to him and she goes, "Don't touch the dishwasher." And the audience, with Frances went, "Oh God, yeah, he better not. He better not. Oh no, is he going to do that?" And with Pat, when she said, "Don't touch the dishwasher," and they're going, "Yeah, he's going to do that. It's going to. Oh, this is great." It was like she wasn't a victim to Tim. She was his equal. Is what I assume it was the difference. And another life lesson. Sometimes it's not about how good of an actor you are. It's about how things are perceived.
And right place, right time.
Right place, right time. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And there I was. Right place, right. But I only got to do the pilot. And Steven was going to come back and do the thing. But then a month goes by because we did it in April, and they didn't start back up. And if the show gets picked up, then they'll start in like late July. And right before that, I get a call and go, "We might need you for a couple of episodes." And I go, "Great." Because now Tootie and I are pregnant.
Both of you?
Well, I helped. I know that I helped in there, but and we're apartment managers and caterers, and I'm going, everything helps. A couple of episodes will be wonderful. Thank you. I'm there. I'm absolutely there.
That's great.
Yeah.
When you were doing the show, did you feel the gradual popularity growing with it? Could you notice it outside when you went places and people came up to you?
Yes. For the first maybe 2 or 3 or 4 4 episodes, we hadn't aired yet. So when I was doing it with Tim as a guest star, because Steven was going to come in, the audience didn't know who we were. They hadn't seen us. They didn't have an idea of what we were.
No attachment yet.
And so it's like we're doing a play, in a way. It's fresh, and whatever I do or however I react to Tim is, the audience reacts to that, and the writers started watching that, and it was like they watched that and then wrote to that. So in a sense, I was a part of the creation of what Al eventually became. And and that was really lovely, and that got me the job. Eventually, they all of a sudden saw the relationship with Tim and Al that they could write to, that over what they had envisioned with Tim and Glenn. So that was kind of a cool thing. But then once we started airing, it was slowly, I didn't know how to deal with that. And that's not in school. That's not something they teach you. You know, now you have social media, and you can go to everybody who talks about how they have to deal with it, or the first time, or like that. But back then, that wasn't ever talked about or discussed, or if it was, I wasn't reading those magazines or those interviews or whatever. And people would come up, and it was almost like I'm not worthy. So I would deflect. I go, no, I look like the guy, but I'm not that guy. And then I'm an apartment manager. I get a phone call that one of our tenants, his kitchen sink is stopped up. Can I take a look? I go, yeah, I can fix that. That's no problem. I know that. So I go down there, and he opens the door, and there's like 15 of his friends are in there. You see, Al Borland's our apartment manager. And I go back to my wife, and I go, it's time we get rid of our day job. We don't need this day job right now. And because it was free rent, which, when you think about it, my rent was $900. So it was $900 a month I was getting paid.
So your life changed.
So the life changed. And then more and more people, yeah. And now it's like, it's not about me anymore. It's about people's growing up watching the show with their grandparents or with their parents, or, and they were kids and they're growing up. And I was just in Grand Rapids just last week, and oh my gosh, the people that would come up, I can't believe you're here. Do you live here? Wherever I am, people just assume that's where I live. So, oh, you must live here, right? Especially if I'm in Michigan.
And Tim's from Detroit, isn't he, originally?
Just a little bit outside. He was in Beverly Hills, Detroit.
Is there a Baptist church there?
I'm sure there are many churches, in the Detroit greater area.
The word Baptist just doesn't seem to go with Beverly Hills, having grown up the son of a Baptist minister. I know that stuff.
So how's your dance moves?
What dance moves?
Well,
and don't ask me to play cards.
Oh, okay. All right.
We couldn't do that.
No.
And I don't smoke anymore.
Well, there
I
you
don't
go.
drink.
Well, there's your poker face right there.
There's my
smoke, Dad.
Baptist upbringing. More with Richard Karn in a moment.
Pam came up to me one day and she goes, I don't think I'm going to do any more layouts for Hef. And then literally a week later, she goes, well, I'm going to do another layout for Hef. I go, why? He says, well, he's got these other pictures and I don't like them, and he's going to use them if I don't do this. He felt, he was the star, but he didn't feel like he was pulling his weight necessarily. And if they can afford to buy their parents a house, there's a weird balance.
Did you have a hard time holding it together? Tim is kind of a comic genius, and he's very quick.
He is, and that was fun to watch. I hadn't been around a stand-up, and I'm watching him talk, in between stuff, and just something that would happen to him on the way home would all of a sudden be hysterical. And as he would grow it during the day, just little stuff that happened to him was turned into his act, almost in a way. And he was very nervous about being an actor. With Pat's an accomplished actor, Earl, who played Wilson, has been on the stage in movies, and me, and he felt, he was the star, but he didn't feel like he was pulling his weight necessarily. But he was. My God, they used most of his act in the pilot. They kept adding things from it. That's my act you're putting into the pilot. Well, I'm going to run out of things to say. He says, well, they're funny and they apply and this and that. But watching Tim work and then working off of him, we had a great time, and we would laugh. If there was something funny, we would hold it together as long as we could, and then we would laugh. Oh my God, I remember an episode where he's showing me the router we're going to use the router. And Al is like, well, Tim, you want to be sure that the the router can Al, yeah, I know. And then he puts the and he clicks and goes, and he's like all over the place. I literally thought I laughed. I hurt. I thought I was laughing, and cut, and I go, I'm so sorry. And he says, what? I laughed. He says, and we go back and we look at the play, and I'm like, there was nothing there, but inside I was exploding.
I used to run into him all the time at the Hollywood YMCA. He worked out there.
Yeah.
And I was there every morning, and he would see me on the Stairmaster. And I'm a person who sweats a lot. And one year, doing the Emmy Awards in Pasadena in September, which is awfully hot.
Yeah.
I was under my tuxedo sweating. I would sweat through my shirt. And Tim came by, and he said, did you just come from the gym? No. I liked him a great deal. He's very funny.
Yeah.
Did you know how big a star he'd become?
Not really. I mean, they told me that there was this stand-up and that he had a Showtime thing. So I watched the Showtime Men Are Pigs tour, and I'm watching this, and I'm going, oh, God, that's funny. That's funny. And then sometime during the first season, he did the amphitheater up at Universal, and we all went to see that, and it was like a different person on stage. It was really interesting to watch. It was Tim, but he was in a suit, and he, his persona was just, way more professionally funny, or whatever. So at that point, I didn't know. I knew he was he was the reason that the show happened, but I hadn't thought about it in those terms. I was still just damn glad to be there. I was having a great time, trying to be helpful, trying to be funny. Don't upstage, but still get your laughs.
Yeah, yep. What was it like? Do you remember working with Pamela Anderson?
Pam was so pretty without makeup. That was what astonished me. Was the first time we went out to some event, and she shows up in this makeup, and I go, "What are you doing?" She goes, "Well, this is what I do. Yeah, this is what sells." And I go, "God, you're so pretty without all that makeup." She goes, "Well, and she's from a little town that I grew up. My grandfather had a boat, and we would go up into the Canadian San Juans from out of Seattle, and we go up the inland sea. And she lived in a little town that had a dock and maybe a post office and a grocery store. It was it was on Vancouver Island, Ladysmith, and she was very chatty. I remember she came up to me one day and she goes, I don't think I'm going to do any more layouts for Hef. And I go, good for you. I don't think you need to anymore. I mean, you're doing this, you're fine now. And she goes, yeah, and then literally a week later she goes, well, I'm going to do another layout for Hef. I go, why? He says, well, he's got these other pictures and I don't like them and he's going to use them if I don't do this. And I went, oh, okay. And it seemed like one of those Hollywood movies where it's just, oh, I'm so sorry.
She's doing a phase. She's going through a phase now. I've seen quite a few pictures of her where she's going out without any makeup on.
And she should have done it 30 years ago. But now she still looks fine. She still looks great,
But if you're used to her the other way, she looks different.
Yeah, but for a while, I mean, and then you get used to it.
Yeah. Did you know how big a star she'd become? Her life became not her own.
Yeah, and
for a while there.
Not that she was stifled as the Tool Time girl, but there wasn't a lot that was going to happen for her. I didn't think. I didn't think they were going to take a storyline, but she wanted to be Pambo. She goes, I think this character can do this and that and I think that's maybe where Barb Wire came from. She wanted to be a superhero in a sense.
I was at the Cannes Film Festival the year they were marketing Barb Wire, and she came dressed in. Yeah. It was like, oh my God, look at her.
Yeah. But she was lovely. I mean, she was really great. And
Very sweet.
yeah.
How about Jonathan Taylor Thomas?
The boys. The boys were 9 and 7. The two boys were the older. The youngest one was 7, who turns out to be the tallest, obviously because his dad was tall. But Jonathan just knew how to tell a joke. He was like this old soul, and I would watch that and I go, oh wow, the writers, they want their jokes to work, so we'll give Jonathan the ones that have payoffs, and the other kids struggled for a little bit to get something timing. Yeah, because they're 9.
Right.
And Jonathan came out of the box at 30. But also he was cute and adorable, and I feel like young child actors have this weird sense of growing up. Their egos and ids are being developed at that age, and if they can afford to buy their parents a house, there's a weird thing, balance. If you can find that balance.
Would you tell me that story again about golfing with Bob Hope and Gerald Ford and what happened afterwards?
God, that was so great. It is
a great story.
Fabulous. Well, I the first time I got invited to the Bob Hope, I couldn't go because we were working. It was in January, and that was one of the weeks we were working. And then the next year, I asked them, can we take this week off? Because we would do 2 weeks on or 3 weeks on, 2 weeks off, week off. And they go, yeah. And so I was able to do the Bob Hope. And I was very excited because this is like a cool golf event. And my sister up in Seattle, she calls up and goes, Rick, I understand you're playing with Bob Hope. And I go, no, I'm playing in the Bob Hope, which is very cool. I want you to know this. It's very cool, but I don't think I'm playing with Bob Hope. And I get up there and I go, so who am I playing with? You're in Mr. Hope's foursome. And I go, oh God, now I got to tell my sister she was right. And Gerald Ford, and with the president, yes, Gerald Ford. And you have 4 pros. The first day will be Kenny Perry, which was the winner from last year. The second day is Tom Kite. The third day is Arnold Palmer.
Oh, my.
And the fourth day is Fuzzy Zeller. And it was like fantasy golf camp every day. And I brought my dad and my father-in-law, and we're walking down the fairway with my dad and Arnold Palmer. And my dad's, he's a builder. He's a contractor from Seattle, Washington. And he looks at me and he goes, I never in my wildest dreams would I think I would be walking down a fairway with Arnold Palmer and the president. And I go, stick with me, kid.
And you're fond of golf to begin with.
I am, which all came out of that Hope Summer Rep back in Michigan, because I worked with an actor whose wife was a big star in soap operas, Kim Zimmer, and A.C. Weary came in to direct Matchmaker. I was doing the straight version of Hello, Dolly.
Thornton Wilder
is the Matchmaker. And he said, yeah, we get invited to these golf tournaments and they give you golf clubs and shoes. And I go, oh, God, wouldn't that be great? And this is 10 years before any of this is happening. And I go, like, yeah, that sounds fun. And so we started playing golf. And you have to pay attention to get any better at golf. And put in some time. And I did. I put in the time.
And on a golf course, just the 4 of you, you tend to talk to people.
Yes.
Gerald Ford invited you to the White House?
Well, not to the White House, but I get a letter. I get a letter the week later from Mr. Ford saying, "Dear Rich, Betty and I would love to host you if you come into the desert, anytime." And I went, wow, that's really nice of him. And a week later, I get another letter saying, "Dear Rick, and my secretary tells me you don't go by Rich." And I have both of those letters, tucked away somewhere.
I'd frame them.
I should. I really should. Put it on my wall of shame or fame or whatever we're going to call it. But it was really fun, and his son was on his bag, so his son was his caddy, and his detail, his
Secret
Service guys called me up later and wanted to play at Lakeside, and so I played with them, like a year later or whatever.
That's great. That's a great story.
I know. I had my own golf tournament for 18 years. Because I was going to other people's charity events, I thought, well, I should do something up in Seattle, for the hospital that my mom had her cancer treatments with. So I did the Fred Hutch and the Overlake Hospital, not knowing that you don't pair a large hospital with a small hospital and then split it 50-50. But that's what I did. I said, well, that's what I want to do. And there were some growing pains there. But we worked it out. They understood that I was bringing them something that they didn't have in their usual fundraising
live and learn
world. But I had Sam Jackson there for 7 years. I had Bill Gates, and I put him with Meatloaf and Sam Jackson, and they had a great time. And then Chris McDonald shows up. He doesn't have shoes. He doesn't even know how to play golf. And we teach him and we give him all this stuff. And then he ends up being, Shooter McGavin. How many years later? So that was fun. That was a lot of fun. And we raised a lot of money for the charities.
Mr. Karn, thank you very much. I've enjoyed this.
This was lovely.
I appreciate it.
If all interviews were just this kind of a conversation.
That's what I like. That's how I like to do them.
Yeah. That's how you got that Emmy over? Oh, those
aren't mine.
Oh.
Those are both his.
Oh, there's more.
There's more. He's being modest.
Well, okay. I'll have to go and check out the bathroom. But thank you for having me on your show.
Holding a door open.
Yeah. Well, what else do you do with them? You hold grapefruits.
Where did I think I saw Olivia Colman on the Graham Norton show talking about how she used her Oscar to hold open the bathroom door, to prop it open. I don't think I'd do that with an Oscar, but who knows?
Well, if it's heavy enough.
Yeah. Well, this was fun. Thank you very much.
All right.
Still Here Hollywood is a production of the Still Here Network. All things technical run by Justin Zangerle. Theme music by Brian Sanashin. And executive producer is Jim Lichtenstein.